El seminario comenzará en breve. Por favor, permanezca en línea. El seminario comenzará en breve. Por favor, permanezca en línea. El seminario comenzará en breve. Por favor, permanezca en línea. El seminario comenzará en breve. Por favor, permanezca en línea. El seminario comenzará en breve. Por favor, permanezca en línea. El seminario comenzará en breve. Por favor, permanezca en línea. La emisión está comenzando. Todos los asistentes están en modo de solo escucha.
Consumer Interactive Brokers. Joining me on the line today is Dave Mape. Welcome, Dave. How are you?
Great, Andrew. Doing really well. Thanks for having me back.
You're very welcome. We always get a great deal of interest in your programming sessions here, and I think you've got a very appropriate title today, How to Improve a Trading Strategy. I think you were telling me just before we began that a lot of your the people that talk to you and want to know how to build out strategies They're also looking at building defensive short-term strategies that might do well in this kind of market where the markets are up 1 minute and down the next, and sharply down in some cases. How are things going there?
Good. So yeah, a lot of my traders, some of them, this is the first down market they've been in, and the strategies that we work on, some of them are short strategies, strategies where they're short the market. So feels really good to, when the market goes down, for you to be making money at the same time. So that's always a good feeling to have.
Very good. And what are you going to look at today with improving on trading strategies?
Yeah, so I think this is fundamentally the way to succeed in the markets, and that's, look at a strategy that you're trading and figure out how to improve it. And that's just fundamentally how to get better. And I work with a lot of traders to do this, to help them improve their strategy. And there's just so many ways to improve it. And really small improvements can make a huge difference in the outcome for a strategy.
Very good. I'm looking forward to learning more. I know the audience is. If you wouldn't mind putting up the disclosures on the second slide, Dave, while I go through my piece of housekeeping here. We're generally talking about potentially risky asset classes. That's why Interactive Brokers Compliance always requires me to put up certain disclosures that are on the screen for you to review. Dave will be wrapped up here within the hour, and within 2 hours there will be a link to today's recording that will appear in your inbox. If you do wish to download the handouts, go to GoToWebinar tower there, expand the handout section and click the PDF to download it. Questions, we'll do a Q&A towards the end, so please, throughout the session, because they're all timestamped, do put in a question into the chat panel, and we'll try and raise that with Dave towards the end. And I think that's about it. So Dave, I'm going to hand the microphone over to you and go on mute. Take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, and like Andrew said, the slides are available there in the application. I will also send an email out to any attendees with a link to the review, the recording, and the handout. And I'd like to do a summary of the questions. A lot of the questions I've gotten over the past 2 webinars have been really good. So I will put a little summary in there in that email. So look for an email from me in the next 2 or 3 days after this. So how to improve any trading strategy. That's the name of this session. Who am I? I'm Dave Mabe. I'm been systematic trading for 20 years. This is really what I do. I currently have 25 plus trading strategies that are trading live. We'll go into more about the process I have for coming up with those. I'm a quantitative trading coach, so I do have slots available now. That wasn't the case for the previous webinars. I have a wait list, so I'm working through that wait list now. So if any of this resonates with you. I'm also the host of the Line Your Own Pockets podcast. That has been super fun. My whole goal in doing this is to create the most trading edge I can in the world through my own strategies and the strategies of people that work with me. And doing the podcast has been way more fun than I thought it would be. And it's just, I've gotten some great feedback from that. So that's just been great. I'm the former CTO of Trade Ideas, which is a real-time alerting package. And I left Trade Ideas about a year ago now to do this full time. So a little bit about my background. I've created hundreds of strategies. I'm not sure that there's anybody that's back tested more than me. I'm pretty sure have created and run more back tests than maybe anybody, probably anybody. I've made all the trading mistakes, and I've come up with a good process for myself to come up with trading strategies, and that's what I help traders do now. My very first trading strategy I traded was just barely good enough, and it took me a while to realize this. It worked fine. It worked well. I made lots of money with it. I put my kids through college with it, bought a house with it. So it was working well, but it was always, um, with hindsight now, I realize it wasn't as good as it could have been. And it sort of forced me to come up with a process to constantly improve it. So the analogy I come up with here is, so I have this salsa recipe that I make a lot. And one of the ingredients is lime juice. So we always have limes in the fridge. So I cut the limes in half, and for a long time I would squeeze it with my hands. And you can only get so much lime juice out of a lime doing that. And it took me a while, but I finally stumbled upon this really awesome tool to do that, which it's like this vice for juicing a lime or lemon. And using this tool with the leverage it provides, you can get like every last drop of juice out of a lime. So I feel like I was doing this with that strategy, just finding all the, every ounce of meat off the bone I could get from it. I was able to do it with this strategy. So and I've done this with lots of strategies since then, with lots of different traders. There's always a way you can improve your trading strategy. And we're going to go through all the different ways that I found to do that. So how does a process for improving help? I think a lot about how I can make my process for improving better, because that helps everything. It helps you improve everything about what you're doing. And it makes you constantly better for any strategies you already trade and strategies that you will create in the future. So the more you think about your workflow, your tool set, the more you're going to understand about your own strategies that you're already trading, and the better and more quickly you're going to be able to come up with strategies in the future. So it's a really powerful thing. It's almost, I think of it as sort of a system for creating trading systems. The better you get at it, the better you're going to be. Here's a chart showing what happens when you go from trading a single strategy to two strategies. I see a lot of traders stuck trading one strategy well, and they're trying to create a second one, but it's hard to do. And it does seem like there's a little bit of a hump to get over to go from one to two. It's hard to get to one, but I think it's probably even harder to get to two strategies. But here's what it looks like when you do that. I mean, here's the beauty of trading multiple strategies. You can look at, the blue line there. You can see the drawdowns. Compare the blue and the red individually, and then look at the one combined. So this is literally just, the green line is literally just adding the red line and the blue line together. You see the drawdowns are shallower, they're shorter. It's going to be easier to trade, easier to stomach, and you're going to do better. So that's really the promise here. And the better you get at creating new strategies, the more you'll be able to do this with your equity curve. All right, so what are the ways to improve a trading strategy? Here are all the ways that I've done it. And I think this is a comprehensive list. So every way that to improve a strategy, I think, falls into one of these buckets. So the first one, and we'll go over all these individually, exclude the worst trades using a rule. So that's going from, starting with a set of trades, ending up with a subset of those trades, excluding the worst trades from the system. Second one is adding more trades to an existing system. So once you get something that works, loosening the rules a little bit to add more trades to the system to improve it. The third one, take your best trades with bigger size. That's easier said than done, but I'll show you an example, and I think that's probably the most powerful way to improve a strategy, but it does take the most effort, and it's sort of the most advanced way. The fourth one is sort of using the combination and what you've learned from your strategy and adding rules to it, from the first three ways. Use what you've learned there to apply it to a new idea to create a new strategy. So we'll talk about that too. That's another very powerful way to create new edge for yourself. All right, so let's go over the very first one. Exclude the worst trades using a rule. So this is very common. This is the first thing you should look at. I see this with a lot of traders where they have some rules in their strategy, but they're not optimal, and they're taking a lot of trades that they shouldn't be taking. So when you look at this chart here, the red line is the original strategy. So that's the original set. And the blue line, although it's lower than the red line, they're only 50% of the trades are in that line. So you can see that taking away 50% of the trades didn't reduce the total profit all that much. So this is a very common way to improve a strategy, by figuring out ways to exclude the worst pockets of trades. And it's just a very common thing that I see traders doing. And it's typically, that's the easiest way. That's where you should start. So what this implies, and because it's the easiest way, it implies that when you start with a back test, you should start with a lot of trades. So in the webinar I did in January of this year, 2025, I did show my process for doing this. And what I do is when I start with a back test, I start with, like I said, lots of trades. Now I know I'm not going to trade the entire set, but I still back test with that entire set, knowing that I have this really excellent process for filtering down and finding optimal rules to apply to the strategy. So what I end up with is anywhere between 10 and 25% of that original trade set is what I target for actually trading. So this is a very common way to improve a strategy. And I just see this over and over with even the best traders I coach that have been trading for a long time, some of the best traders in the world. They can I still see them trading strategies where this is the best way to improve it. So let's go to the next one. So add more trades to an existing system. This is a bit harder, but still a lot of strategies can be improved using this method. So I come across a lot of traders who are trading a strategy where they've already filtered down to a really small set to try to find the most edge possible with that, with the trades they end up with. And that is an approach, but I find that what you can do in that situation is loosen the rules so that you allow more trades into the system, and you end up generating more total profit, like a lot more, if you're able to relax some of the rules. So, this is essentially sort of optimizing on win rate, like the win percentage, which a lot of traders tend to do. But you can do that and end up with a really small number of trades that you have some high confidence in. But I find that some strategies like this, you can improve it a lot by loosening those rules, and maybe the win rate's not quite as high, but the overall profit is significantly more. So you can see here the chart here. This is one of the strategies I've done this with. The original one is the line on the bottom, and then the original one plus more trades that you find using this process can improve it dramatically. So if you look at the last webinar where I went into a lot of detail about this, that was the one from February. this is a, I talked a lot about the API then and how I went from a system that I was trading manually and came up with a program using the API to trade it automatically, which allowed me to give me the ability to add a lot more trades to the system. I felt like, remember the I Love Lucy show and the famous scene where she's in the chocolate factory and there's chocolate coming out of this conveyor belt and she's trying to keep up. That's how I felt then, and that's that was the motivation for this improvement and using the API to handle a lot more trades. All right, let's go to the next slide. So take your best trades with bigger size. Like I said, this is the more advanced, but I think it's the biggest payoff. We just actually coincidentally did an episode of the Line Your Own Pockets podcast on this exact topic where I describe an interaction with a client of mine where this was the way he was able to improve. He had a very intuitive sense of his strategy, and he could pick out the trades where he had the highest confidence. And that confidence was played out in the data. So because of that, if you're able to figure out which pockets of trades are the best, you could figure that out ahead of time, with data that you can know about before the trade and trade those with bigger size. I go into a lot more detail on the podcast, but you're not able to do this with every single trading strategy, but for the ones you can and the ones you are able to figure out what's correlated with profit and find the features of your system that do correlate well with profit and figure out how to identify those trades ahead of time. This is a very powerful way to do that. And you can see here with the equity curves below, these are both the exact same strategy. The red line is showing the rule I was able to apply. This is a live strategy, and I'm trading that set of trades. And there's probably, I would say, probably 25% of the trades I'm trading with bigger size because I've been able to figure out what features of it are predictive and trade those with a lot more size than the remainder of the trades. So look at listen to the podcast episode for more details if you're interested in that. Like I said, it requires a deep understanding of your trading strategy and what features are predictive. So the fourth one, use what you learn through the process that I've just described to create a new strategy. So here's a couple examples of how I was able to do that with that original strategy that I mentioned earlier. So it was a gap strategy. So I was looking for US equities that were gapping up today. And if the gap was over a certain amount, I would be looking for a pattern and trade that long. I did that for a while, and then I realized, okay, what if I did the opposite? What if when the stock was gapping down, I would look for the same pattern, but just on the opposite side and trade those short. So I was able to come up with two strategies from the one original based on what I was learning by trading the long strategy first. I took that a step further by figuring out another system for the stocks that were gapping up. So I noticed that some would, because I'm looking at this every day, because I'm looking at the charts, and I would notice that some would, maybe I would take the trade and they would hit my stop and they would continue down a lot. So it made me think, okay, there's probably something here on the short side. So gapping up, but taking those short. So just that process of what I learned from trading this long and doing the opposite on the short side, and having basically I turned one strategy into 4 different strategies based on what I'd learned from the one, and just continually using a process, back testing it, some theories that I came up with by looking at this consistently over time and learning about what, basically how these strategies work. So this is ultimately how you're going to create more edge over time, and, use what you learn, and oftentimes use sort of the opposite of what you learn, or the opposite of what's implied by a rule you implement. There's often edge there, sort of just outside of your trading rules. So how to prioritize what to work on. So the traders I work with, sometimes they'll have a lot of ideas about what to back test, what to work on next. Sometimes it's overwhelming. So I always, one thing I discovered just over the course of trading over the years, there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go into. So it's always good to think about and work on the stuff that is going to pay off, and prioritize that to work on first. I came up with this saying: from the surface, every rabbit hole looks like a pile of money. So the better you get at figuring out what is going to be a rabbit hole and what not, the more time you're going to save, the more the work you do on your trading is going to pay off. So what should you prioritize? Improving an existing strategy is easier than creating a brand new one. So I've just seen so many traders where ultimately their existing strategy, there's a lot of different ways to improve it. So I would start with that, because you're already trading it live, or you have some comfort with it. You know a little bit about how it works. So that's going to be an easier process to improve an existing one than to create a brand new one. So when you're choosing between those 2 items to work on, choose the existing strategy route first. The other thing is, it's really important to focus on your tools and your workflow, because that's going to pay off for everything you do. So you're going to be able to use that to improve your existing strategies, plus any new strategies you come up with from now forever. So the more you work on that, the better and faster you're going to be at coming up with ideas and improving your existing strategies. So it's never a bad idea to work on your tools and your workflow and your process, and think about any friction that you might have in there and eliminate it, because like I said, it might not pay off right now, but it's going to pay off as soon as you implement it, and it's just going to pay off forever. So that's how I think about what to prioritize, what to work on. All right, that's it. Happy to take questions now. There is, if you're interested in learning more, I do have a free email course on backtesting. You can see the link here. And you can feel free to follow up with me with questions. There's my email address, dave@davemabe.com. I have a weekly newsletter, free newsletter that you'll be put on after the backtesting course, which I send a lot of useful information to about backtesting, strategy creation, ways to configure Trader Workstation, anything about the API. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Dave. Informative session. What works well in a market like this?
It's a good question. I purposefully avoid trying to time the market or like activate certain strategies in markets, like in different markets. So my goal is always come up with strategies that work across all markets. And that's not, perhaps that's easier said than done, but that's always what I do, and that's how I trade all my strategies. The ones that work now are, ones that are short or ones that are capturing, volatile markets. So that's how I think about that. And yeah, I think I don't like having to watch the market and try to time when to turn things on and off. So by default, I have all my 25 strategies running through all markets, and it's pretty rare that I will turn one off.
How does this? I've just for the audience, I did put a note in there in the chat panel. Please do put any additional questions in for Dave at this time, and we'll try and take those. How does this bearish phase of the market feel compared to other bear markets you've seen unfolding? Does it feel like we're at the beginning of something? Does it feel any different than a usual bear market? And have you seen any signs of capitulation? Or another add-on to that is, what would you be looking for capitulation?
Good question. I don't think it feels different than markets in the past. I've been trading for a long time, and I kind of, it takes a lot to wake me up and think about the market and sort of get outside of my strategies. So again, I don't really, like I said, I spend a lot of time thinking about designing my strategies so that I don't have to think about the overall market. And I don't have regime filters that turn things on and off in certain markets. And basically because, I feel like that is, it's easier for me to trade day in and day out without having to worry about turning things on and off.
Conexión a los datos
Gotcha.
de mercado
Some questions
perdida.
coming through now. Are any of your strategies available as built-in
Conexión a los
plugins
datos de
in
mercado
TWS?
restablecida.
I don't sell my strategies like that. What I think is way more valuable is teaching you how to come up with your own strategies. It's I can tell with the traders that I've worked with and just my own career that when you turn the corner and become successful is when you fully sort of burn your boat, so to speak, where you're not looking over somebody else's shoulder. You're taking full control over your own trading and coming up with your own process for coming up with strategies. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Roger asks, do you periodically backtest your strategies to optimize for current market conditions?
Good question. So I do run a back test regularly, but mainly what I'm doing there is comparing my actual results to the back tested results. So I'm using the back test as a reference point. And so in that sense, I will do, on a longer time period, I will do a periodic review to see if there are other rules I should be applying or re-optimize, so to speak. So yeah, I do have a process for doing that, but it's less frequent than the back testing I'm doing on a regular basis.
Very good. We've no more questions at this point, Dave. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you in April.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
And don't forget, if you want to get in touch with Dave, it's dave@davemade.com.
Great. Thanks a lot, Andrew. Enjoyed this.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye for now.